I think.
There we go. Welcome back, Fantasy Endgame fam. What's going on? Fantasy Endgame baseball players, we are back. And of course, the trade deadline just finished, and the MLB trade deadline never seems to disappoint. Just crazy, crazy moves in Major League Baseball trade deadline. And boy, we got some big ones. So we just rip the Band-Aid off for you, Pierre. Just rip the Band-Aid off here. Let's just get started with it. The best player on the Miami Marlins went to the evil New York Yankee Empire and looks like he's now the best player in all of baseball in just a short amount of time. Was this all? And if you don't know who I'm talking about, of course, Jazz Chisholm was traded to the New York Yankees of all teams, and he's been an absolute monster. Back-to-back 2 home run games. Is this all he needed? Are we going to finally see Jazz Chisholm's absolute ceiling? Like, what, he just needed to get out of Miami?
Yeah, that's pretty much the remedy for any player in baseball. I mean, we've seen it to tale as old as time itself. Basically, once a player goes, a good player, or granted, not every player, but once players go from the Marlins to another team, that's the boost they need. And I'm not really even exaggerating. There's so many. You could feel a Hall of Fame team with former players who started as Marlins. Remember, Miguel Cabrera came up with the Marlins. This is not the first time recently we've seen a guy who was even better than Jazz. He was an MVP with the Marlins, Giancarlo Stanton, then go to the Yankees. So this is nothing new, right? So the Band-Aid has been ripped off repeatedly year after year for a couple decades now. But that said, Jazz going to the Yankees, of course it's good. Of course it's good. Now, is Jazz going to continue the way he has? I mean, look, he's got power. This is nothing like out of the ordinary. He's got power. He's got speed. This is why the Yankees, who are really right behind the Orioles, and remember, before their skid, right before and after the All-Star break, they were looking like the best team in baseball. But their problem really wasn't so much on offense. They've kind of patched that up, but it's the rotation. That's what's interesting is they didn't pull off any big move to help their pitching staff. They were in on Flaherty. They didn't get Flaherty, which apparently that was something medical related. We'll talk about Flaherty in a second. But yeah, Jazz, the Yankees, of course, it's a boost for him. This is a player that landed in the best possible situation for his fantasy value. So congrats, Chris. You officially won that trade. I don't know what Julio needs to even do for the second half. I mean, at least what he did last year in the second half. If he doesn't at least do that, you've already won that trade by a country mile.
I mean, the first thing he's got to do is play. Is he even back yet? Is he even playing yet?
That's number one. He's not even playing. And then when he comes back, yeah. I mean, the Mariners may move. The Mariners at least are a contender, but yeah, Jazz going to the Yankees. It's good for the Yankees. It's good for him. I will say this because the Marlins made a ton of deals, especially some smaller deals. Already knowing what was coming, I'm actually not disappointed, considering that this is a rebuilding year. Right? We knew this was a rebuilding year since before the year started. They pretty much announced that by doing nothing in free agency. They signed one guy, Tim Anderson, and they DFA'd him in the middle of the season. Right? Okay, you're rebuilding. At least get a good haul back. And they actually did. I actually am very happy with what the Marlins got back. But a lot of that didn't come from the Jazz deal. It came from other deals.
Right. And now, like, the Marlins were already a team that I was fine streaming against. Are they now just like, as long as the pitcher has a pulse, stream them?
Anybody, honestly, because here's another thing with the Marlins. That's actually a really good point. They are now officially the Oakland A's of the National League. Not that they kind of weren't already, but now officially it's gone to that level. In fact, I think the A's probably have more talent in the starting lineup than the Marlins. But I will say this. The pitching staff already was questionable. And then now we have Edward Cabrera apparently is getting an MRI, something tweaked with him. He's been bad, and now he might even be on the IL. And then Trevor Rogers, who's just kind of okay, he's gone. It's honestly, it's like a AAA starting rotation. So any hitter you can stream against the Marlins, do it. And then as far as pitchers, yeah, do it too.
All right, let's talk about another, I guess, big name who has been struggling this year. That's Randy Arozarena, formerly of the Tampa Bay Rays, now of the Seattle Mariners. This is a guy has not quite had the same impact since he went to his new team, but this is a guy who's historically been very good, having a down year, only batting 211, 15 home runs. So you like him more or less now that he's a Mariner?
A lot more for a couple of reasons. So first of all, this is why, and you recall how many times we got asked over and over again about Randy Arozarena in like May, early June. What do I do with this guy? Do I trade him? Do I drop him? And we had to keep saying, no. This is a guy who will pull it together at least to some extent. And you see why. Ever since then, he has already gotten hot with Tampa even. And now, of course, a much better situation. Like I said, the Mariners, not a great offense this year. Okay, they're not. Even when Julio comes back. Julio's been there all year. But it's better than what Tampa's been. Tampa's been one of the worst offenses in the majors, which is why they became sellers. But I said this also for anybody who watched the buy low video today, is why I'm in on guys like Isaac Paredes. It's not so much that Tampa was like a pit of despair, like Oakland, or the White Sox. But it's just different vibe. You know what I mean? I don't like to, especially in baseball, get too much into like the intangibles thing. But I don't know. Are you kind of with me on this thing? Like when you go from a team where you just feel like, yeah, this season's not going anywhere, and then you go to a team that it's like, hey, we're going to make the playoffs and we want you in our squad. I have to think that kind of makes a difference.
Yeah, I think that's what we're seeing. I think we've already seen that with Jazz. I really do. Like, it's not like Jazz is a guy that people looked at and be like, oh, this guy has no talent. Like, Jazz has been one of those guys that everybody's like, the talent is there, but we need to see it. And when you're toiling away on some terrible team, yeah, maybe you don't put 110%, maybe you give 80% effort. Now you go to the Yankees and suddenly, you're surrounded by Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, all these stars. And it's like, okay, now I'm going to put forth 100% effort. Now, of course, Jazz isn't going to hit, 50 home runs the rest of the season, obviously. But yeah, I think there's definitely something to that for sure.
Yeah, a little different. And I will say this, it's not even so much a thing where it's like, well, he was dogging it just because he was in Miami, or like, like a Arozarena, what he gave up on this. No, I don't think that's it. Guys get off to slow starts like a Arozarena. He was coming around even before he got traded. We didn't know he was going to get traded. And it's might even be more like a subconscious thing, right? I mean, it's just different when you're in a clubhouse. Like you said, you see Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, and like these guys are like, they expect to go out and win. When you're on a team like the Marlins, you're hoping maybe you'll win, and that it maybe actually matters in October, even though it really won't.
Right.
It's just different, right? It's not just like the guys choose. You can't always choose what your motivation level is, right? A lot of it's subconscious, I think.
Definitely. And that leads us to maybe the biggest winner as far as pitchers go. A guy who has already been great this year, Jack Flaherty, rolling with a 2.95 ERA, 133 strikeouts in 106 innings. I don't even know, was he drafted in most leagues? Maybe very, very late. Maybe an early season waiver wire pickup, and he's been phenomenal. And now he goes to one of the best teams in the National League, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Again, this is the exact same situation we just talked about. He was doing great on a team that had no hope. Now he's going to go to a team that has World Series expectations. And he's going to go to a team that gave him almost no run support to a team that can easily give him plenty of run support. So you got to think, at a minimum, he's going to rack up more wins here, if nothing else. And then, of course, he's already been pitching great. So if you've got Flaherty, are you just, doing backflips at this point?
Not necessarily, because, with a guy like Flaherty, speaking of the back, if he tried to backflip, he'd probably land on the 60 AIL. Remember, the Yankees were in on him, and then they looked at his medical records, and they're like, nah, we're out. We're good. And they wound up doing nothing, not just with him, but for starting pitching. Now, it could be because they've been there and been burned before, right? Frankie Montas a couple of years ago. And, if they don't feel like this is a sure thing, they didn't want to do it, right? Obviously, teams didn't go all in to meet Garrett Crochet's demand. So I think it was more out of just being cautious. But at the same time, this is what the issue has been with Flaherty. It's never been about talent, really. It's about just being able to stay healthy. So going to the Dodgers doesn't seem to be a good place for a starting pitcher to not be injured. So I would just kind of treat Flaherty the same way we've treated him all year. I would say if he's out there, yes, he's going to be good. He's been really excellent this year, but
Yeah.
there's always a part of you that's wondering, is there an IL sync coming? And it's really not an upgrade, not a downgrade either, but also I talked a lot about park factors and team switching. Tiger Stadium, Comerica Park, there's a great place for a pitcher, right? It's really, really kind of a dead offensive environment. Dodger Stadium is more of a pitcher's park, but it's not an upgrade for him. So upgrade in wins potentially, but other than that, nothing much changes.
All right, how about a couple other pitchers that moved to are they the best team in baseball? The Orioles, best team in baseball? Zach Eflin, another Tampa Bay Ray on the move. And you talked about Trevor Rogers, formerly of your Marlins, went to the Orioles, as did White Sox Eloy Jimenez, but I'm not sure that moves the needle at all. He's been, I don't know, for lack of a better word, horrendous this year. But let's talk about the pitchers because, they're like Zach Eflin, pretty fairly highly rostered out there. Trevor Rogers has been streamable at times. So how are you feeling about these guys now that they are on another true World Series contending team?
Yeah, the Orioles, I don't know the official count. It feels like they were the busiest team at the deadline. It feels like just made a ton of moves. Look, props to them for doing what they set out to do, right? They went and they decided we're all in on this year. We're going to get whoever it takes to help us get a World Series because they weren't that far off. Obviously got bounced early, disappointed last year, but it was still a young team. And so they're like, okay, we need some experience. We don't want all young players in our lineup. And they needed rotation help, obviously, so many injuries. So on paper, I don't feel like they really improved the talent level of their team. I think they just improved the experience on their team. And I think they did what they needed to do to help them win now. Eflin, I talked about in the video that came out today. So I'll just say, yeah, it's just kind of like with Flaherty, slight bump for as far as wins. But other than that, mostly lateral for his fantasy value. Trevor Rogers, I don't know why they were so interested in Trevor Rogers. I love this deal for Miami because we got two of their, better prospects for a guy who's like a mid-rotation starter for us, and now he's like a back-end rotation piece for them. I was surprised the Orioles did that move. They must really see something in Rogers they like, or maybe they were watching his highlights from 3 years ago. So I'm not going to go in on Rogers for fantasy just because he's in Baltimore, because this is just still too risky, right? He's a player I don't feel like going to Baltimore is going to all of a sudden make him much better. I think he is what he is. And Eloy Jimenez, he's not going to be an everyday player. And, you pull up the highlight reel for him. Somebody posted one of these funny things on Twitter about all his injuries, like his low light reel of all the times he's gotten injured. It's actually kind of funny. But, yeah, let's not pretend that Eloy Jimenez is a different guy. He'll have his moments. But Austin Hayes, who got traded from Baltimore to Philadelphia, I think he's probably going to have more value going forward.
Are they talking about him being like the everyday left fielder or something? Or everyday right fielder? Well, maybe not right fielder because isn't that Bryce Harper?
Well, Harper's first base now.
First base.
Hayes, they mainly got Hayes. He'll at the least be like a strong side platoon. He's the guy who's going to be out there most days. They mainly got him to hit against lefties, but I think they'll have him also in against some righties. But we'll see how it shakes out.
All right. Now, is it possible to get traded away from the White Sox and not get an upgrade? Well, Eric Fetty got traded away from the White Sox. Yay, to the Cardinals. Oh, so he went from one horrible non-contending offense to another horrible non-contending offense, and he didn't even get like a park upgrade. It's not like he went from like a hitter-friendly park to a pitcher-friendly park. It's like, so what do we do here with Eric Fetty going to the Cardinals?
Yeah, this is to a lesser extent what I've said about like a guy like Eflin is like, oh sure, technically the Cardinals are sort of in the wild card race, although it doesn't feel that way. But so what? I think Fetty is going to be exactly what he's been this year, like almost exactly. So hold steady in value. This is not a big, massive upgrade for his fantasy value. But I think Fetty's been undervalued all year anyways. So yeah, that move, good for St. Louis, doesn't really mean much for fantasy. And the Dodgers getting these utility guys, I think it just makes it more of a mess because now you don't know who's going to start any given day at any position for the Dodgers. Um, it's just, yeah. Again, they did what they needed to do, right? This is a team that's all in on the postseason. So fine, you got veterans, you have depth. That's fine. Veteran depth and utility players like Ahmed Rosario and Tommy Edman, like that doesn't do anything for me in fantasies. Just because these guys are wearing a Dodgers uniform right now does not make them more valuable.
All right, now let's talk about maybe the strangest trade that we saw. So the Tampa Bay Rays traded infielder Isaac Paredes to the Cubs. I should say, to make it even more strange, they traded 25-year-old infielder Isaac Paredes to the Cubs for 25-year-old infielder Christopher Morel. This is like one of those trades where it's like in fantasy football where it's like, I'll trade you my wide receiver one for your wide receiver one. Like, what is this? Like, what is this?
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what the purpose was for Tampa to do this. Like, I guess because they did get a couple of prospects also, but not high end prospects. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It feels almost like they traded Paredes just for the sake of trading him, like because he felt like they should. I don't know. What do they really see in Morel? He doesn't even fit the typical mold of a Tampa player. So Tampa's been really confusing this whole season. Honestly, I'm not sure what's going on. It's like a different franchise, to be honest. But I don't know. I mean, I talked more about that. Like I said, the buy low. I say I kind of like Paredes more, but it's not a big bump for him necessarily on paper. But yeah, it's just weird.
All right, let's get to some like maybe not as big moves here, but moves nonetheless. Lane Thomas, who's actually been having a pretty decent year this year, toiling away on the Nationals. Currently batting .253, 8 home runs. I mean, decent. Now he's gonna, maybe I guess the Guardians are okay. So does this move the needle up or down for you?
A little bit. Again, you feel like, yeah, record-wise, there's a big difference between Cleveland and Washington, but you have to think about context in fantasy. Does this help? Is this offense that's much better? Is he going to be in a better situation? Is he going to be, a different place in the lineup? So overall, I don't think it does a whole lot. I mean, it's a better team context. He'll probably score more runs. I think that's the main thing right here. But Lane Thomas has finally picked it up. He had a very slow start to the season. As it is, his value is still pretty high. I think this is good, but I don't think it makes me view him a whole lot differently in terms of fantasy value either, because he should still be able to get the green light. That's one thing is Cleveland still runs. Washington, not scared to steal bases, but I think overall Lane Thomas, his value pretty much holds steady.
All right, then how about a couple of closers? Carlos Estevez actually has been pretty good for a horrendous Angels team, has 20 saves on the season, and then Tanner Scott, formerly of your Marlins. So Carlos Estevez now going to be the closer for the Phillies, and Tanner Scott for the Padres. Does this upgrade, downgrade either of these guys?
Well, it's hard to say with the Phillies. They don't necessarily pick a guy and go with him, right? We've seen Alvarado was the guy at first. He's kind of struggled off and on. We saw Hoffman pick up a few saves. And of course, if they felt great about those guys, they wouldn't have gone out and got Estevez. You'd think Estevez would be first in line, but he's probably not getting every save here or now. It's probably going to be mix and match depending on situation. So I will say if you have Estevez, you can still hold him and expect saves. Tanner Scott, I don't think it's going to be the same thing. I think we're going to see still Suarez as the closer. I think Scott's going to be kind of next in line, but the setup guy. I don't think they move Scott as the primary closer, which is probably smart. But again, it depends. You got a lefty and a righty, so it might really be situational. So I don't think we see Scott go all year without any more saves. But if you're really counting on him to be the closer, I don't think that's a good idea. But this is also why I said, and this is the last time I'll say it this season, before the trade deadline, if you had any frontline closers who might be trade candidates like Tanner Scott, or have competition come in, like Jose Alvarado, and there was a couple other guys I mentioned, you trade him while you can. Because now if you have Tanner Scott, like Nate, you're like, what do I do with him? I think you can drop him. I don't, like I said, he probably will get you some saves, going forward. And then of course, what happens if Suarez gets hurt? Okay, well then you want Tanner Scott. But you also don't need to count on him getting a ton of saves. I don't think he's the guy. So you can drop Tanner Scott if you need the spot.
All right, and then just a few more kind of like smaller trades here. Michael Lorenzen went to the Royals, Kikuchi to the Astros, Justin Turner to the Mariners, and Jesse Winker to the Mets. Which one of these are you most interested in, if any, or none?
Lorenzen, no interest really. I mean, it's a great park, but he's just an okay pitcher, back end streamer. Probably he'll have some moments. Kikuchi is the interesting one. He's always a guy. I've told you. I can't. He's like the Lucy with the football of pitchers. It's like every time you go in on him, you feel like he pulls the rug from under you, and he has one of those blow up starts that kills you. Yeah. So I don't know. I was just shocked they gave up so much for him. I'm not sure what the Astros were thinking, but that's their problem. And then as far as Turner, no thanks. Winker will only be a part-time player. So those minor moves don't really move the needle too much.
All right, there you go. Those are most of the major trades that have fantasy impact. Of course, if you got questions about some other guys, we will get to that, or any other questions you have. But first, I got to continue to remind you, if you haven't tried Underdog Fantasy yet, there's still plenty of time. The baseball season's still going on. You got the pick'ems right there. You see for tonight, you got multiple games tonight you can do pick'ems for. And of course, if you go join Underdog Fantasy now and sign up using our promo code ENDGAME, you're going to get a special pick, a free pick, basically a free win right there for you, plus up to $250 in bonus cash. And of course, if you play fantasy football as well, I'm sure a lot of you do, they got fantasy football drafts rolling on right now. The fantasy football season is almost here. So if you want to go check those out, definitely go check it out. Again, that's Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code ENDGAME when you join to take advantage of that special pick and your first time deposit offer of up to $250 in bonus cash. Now let's get to the questions. And as always, if you drop the super chat, if you're impatient, you will jump the line. You have to say your fast pass, front of the line. Or if you just want to be generous and say thanks, you can drop the super chat like Antoine always does every single time. Thank you, Antoine. Appreciate it. All right. He already has clinched the #1 seed. Congratulations.
Nice.
What advantage? You got major advantages. Do I have in trade? Should I be looking into the future now? Also, I got Jazz for Volpe and Machado. Hoping Jazz gets third base, second base eligibility because he's been playing third base for the Yankees, right? So,
Yep.
All right. So first of all, rate the trade: Jazz for Volpe and Machado.
I mean, it's easy to say right now that looks like a steal, right? You got Jazz, who's the second half MVP. Look, he'll cool down at some point, but Jazz, he's going to add that third base eligibility pretty soon, it looks like. Yeah, it's valuable. I mean, you already had Machado. He's been real up and down this season. He feels like he slumps. When he slumps, it slumps hard. And then when he gets hot, he gets really hot. I think he'll kind of wind up with a similar stat line to last year, except a little bit less. Volpe is really interesting because I can't give up on him. He's got so much talent. He was so hot to start the season as well, but now he's been bumped down in the lineup, and now he'll probably stay lower in the lineup as well because, of course, they added Jazz. They got Verdugo near the top, who they didn't not trade. Ben Rice is in the mix. But I still like Volpe overall. I think this is possibly going to still be a win for you, though. I still think Jazz is going to be good enough that he'll probably outweigh the value of the others because he'll probably steal as many bases as Volpe, if not more, and he'll hit as many home runs as Machado. I mean, obviously he won't have as much, in terms of overall counting stats as those two guys combined, but still, we usually prefer quality over quantity, right?
That's right. So, okay, so it's a good trade. Now he's got the #1 seed locked up. What advantages? I don't think you really have any disadvantages when you got the 1 seed locked up.
Well, one thing that could be, I know it won't be with you, Antoine, because you're always on a disadvantage, could be that you get complacent and you're like, okay, I'm good.
Yes.
Let's let it ride. You don't have to make trades, but don't just stop making trades. A lot of people do this. They coast into the playoffs, or they're like, yeah, man, my team is so good. Just because your team is good in July doesn't mean it's going to be good in late September. So you have to just continue to be on top of things like always. But you do have the advantage is that you can deal from strength. People who are desperate, this is what you need to do. Anybody who right now is in either number one seed or near the top of the standings, start looking not to the bottom, right? Early in the season, you look at the bottom of the standings. Right now, the guys who are at the very bottom of the standings, they're probably checked out or they're not going to do anything to help the top teams, right? They don't feel bad for you. Look at the middle of the standings. Look at the guys who are just on the outside looking in or just barely in the playoffs, the guys who aren't quite sure or they feel like they need to do something to improve. And you deal from your strength in order to improve any weaknesses you have, whether it's position or a category or whatever. So I would just say that maybe you have a surplus in pitching, you have an extra starter, you don't need, try to flip that and make that into a, player. I did something like that. In fact, not that I'm on the top of the standings because I'm not, but I traded one of my starting pitchers to get an outfielder because Julio's on the IL, Tatis is still on the IL. I'm hurting at outfield. I wanted some more offense. So I was like, I have a lot of starting pitchers. Let me make this deal.
All right. And then he's also asking this, and I already know the answer to this one. Would you ever let a team fighting for a playoff spot win against you and hope to get a weaker team to advance instead?
Well, let's touch on the frowned upon thing. I don't think it's cool to bench all your players, right? Just to to basically tank and just take the L. I wouldn't do that. So when you say let a team win, I don't think you should just sit out a week to let a guy win. I'm not down with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'll say this. I'm one of those who I would say, look, if it's not against the rules, nobody can blame you for doing it, right? So you could do that. But I would just say be careful because who you think might be the weaker team might not be the weaker team a week or two from now. Be careful what you wish for, right?
Yes. I've seen this in many fantasy leagues where the team in first place I'm going to let this team that's not very good somehow make the playoffs so I can play them in the first round, and then they get beat in the first round. I mean, you just don't know, right? You just don't know. You don't know what a team's going to do that week. You don't know what their team's going to look like 6 weeks from now, whenever the playoffs are. Nah, just keep. I think it kind of goes back to what you said. It was his first question. You want to stay sharp, and that means you need to keep playing like every week matters, even if deep down it doesn't. Like even this week in our league, I'm playing against a team that doesn't check their lineup. They're like dead last. They don't check their lineup anymore. But I'm still trying to set my best lineup every day. I'm still trying to stay sharp and because you don't want to just take a week off or I'm in first place. Yeah, I'll let this team win and this team win because I want to face them in the playoffs. And then the playoffs come around and you realize, hey, something happened to my team. It's not as good. And how did their team get so strong? Yeah, just play the game. Play like Herm Edwards said. You play to win the game. Play to win.
That's it. Just set your best lineup. Worry about your team. Don't worry about the other guy's team. This is fantasy. It's not reality. You don't play defense. Right. You can't control at all what the other team does. So don't worry about the other team. You focus on your team and make your team as best as possible. And if it's the best team, then you win.
All right. And then Scott with the super chat. Hey, fellas. He's got Jay Jones. I don't know who Jay Jones is. Do you?
Jared Jones? Jared Jones can't be ready to come off IL yet, can he?
Oh, Jared Jones? Maybe. Is he? Oh, I forgot what. Yes. Maybe Jared Jones.
Well, he did throw a news on him session, but I don't know that he's getting activated soon. I mean, could be wrong there.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's got to be Jared Jones. That's the only guy I know. Let's see. Is there any news on him?
Well,
he threw a 38-pitch bullpen. This is yesterday. He threw a 38-pitch bullpen session Tuesday. It's marked his second bullpen session since landing on the injured list. He'll throw a live bullpen session during the team's upcoming homestand. And could head out for a rehab assignment shortly thereafter. So maybe fairly soon, but not right away. But anyways, he's saying got some good guys on waivers. Gavin Williams, man, glad I held on to that guy. Eric Fetty on the waivers. So who do you like? Jared Jones, Taj Bradley, Spencer Schwellenbach, Gavin Williams, Eric Fetty. Got to pick 2.
All right. Forcing the choice here. Okay. I'm not going to really back off of what I said about Jared Jones a couple weeks ago. And Jared Jones, at first I was saying, look, just trade him while you can, sell high. And then once he hit the IL, we were hearing he'll be out a few weeks. I said you could cut him. I said you don't have to keep him. And you're going to be forced in that position soon. Now, here's the thing. He's probably not coming off IL anytime real soon because rehab session will take some time. They'll probably, want to get him a couple of short starts in. We're still probably looking towards, I would guess, mid to late August. And so the other reason I said that about Jones is because even if when he comes back, if the Pirates are still contending for a wild card spot, I don't think they push Jones that hard. I mean, this is one of their prized young arms, right? He's second in line behind Paul Skeens. They're not going to run him out there if he's, just coming off an extended injury, if they're feeling like he's going to hit his innings limit. So I'm just really nervous about Jones. And of course, there's always a possibility of re-injury for a young pitcher who's 22 years old and doesn't know necessarily what the best way to rehab is. So I'm going to say right now, you got to buy into what Taj Bradley's doing. He just continues to look great. And I like Schwellenbach and I like Williams, but I think you got to go Fetty.
So who was the second one? Fetty and who?
Fetty and Bradley.
Okay, Fetty and Bradley. There you go. And then he's got another super chat. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. It's a 10-team categories leagues, win saves, quality starts, ERA, whip, and Ks per 9. Interesting. So not just strikeouts, it's strikeouts per 9. Interesting. So does this, I doubt this changes anything for you, but he's got Skubal, Lopez, Reagans, Kirby, Snell, and Michael King. Michael King is probably a beast in this one because this K per 9 is pretty good. Ahead of Bradley. So you're still going Bradley and who did you say there? Bradley and Fetty?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's look for, first of all, okay, it is 10-team, not 12-team, but this is still a pretty killer rotation. And especially I know Lopez hasn't been great in ERA, but K per 9, that bumps him up even more. I mean, not that it makes a difference with Ks, but yeah, you've got a great team here. I think you keep all those guys. Bradley, I still like Bradley. Fetty doesn't get quite as many strikeouts, but compared to Williams, Schwellenbach, Jones. Yeah, and I do look, this is interesting because you have it's wins and quality starts. So a guy like Fetty, I think definitely becomes more valuable than a guy like a Jared Jones or even another rookie like Schwellenbach. So yeah, I'm going to keep my answer the same. Fetty gets a bump potentially in wins, and he'd get more likely to get you quality starts. And yeah, I think I'll still go Bradley next.
All right. Appreciate that, Scott. Good luck there. All right. Back to back Nate. Because remember, he did have that Tanner Scott problem in a saves only league. So he's looking for replacements, wondering is Michael Kopech, who went from the White Sox to the Dodgers. Now the Dodgers, I think technically still view Evan Phillips as a closer, but Evan Phillips has been struggling. So you think Kopech's a good speculative ad? Could he get some save ops in LA?
I mean, that's a great question because obviously I just talked about Evan Phillips in the Panic video, and he's not in any way cemented as that closer. But here's the problem is I don't know that Kopech would be next in line. I mean, obviously he got saves for the White Sox, but that's really more because they didn't have anybody else. And they were probably trying to bump up his trade value, let's be honest. He's not a bad speculative ad, but I could see them going to like Alex Vesia, maybe Trainin, maybe Hudson, maybe Gratterall. They have so many guys who they could go to. This might just wind up being a full-blown committee, or mix and match. So I would just be nervous because whatever saves Kopech might get you might be offset by that one game he has where he'll give up like 5 runs in a third of an inning, because that's what Michael Kopech does sometimes. So I get the reasoning. I mean, it might make sense, but I'm probably just out on Kopech for now, just because I know he isn't the closer for sure, and the risk is still there with him.
All right, there you go. Good luck. Hopefully he can get you some saves. All right, Dexter has we haven't gotten a Gleyber Torres question in a while, but here we go. In a points league, Andres Jimenez or Gleyber Torres?
Yeah, it's funny. Speaking of the whole Jazz thing, like going to third base, if you saw that thing, they asked Jazz, like, "Oh, are you willing to try third base? You never played it before." He's like, "Yeah, I don't care. I'll play whatever it takes the team, to win." They asked Gleyber Torres, would you be willing to play third base? He's like, "I'm a second baseman. I play second base." Like, okay, then. It's like, Gleyber Torres has not done anything to change our opinions of him. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going Andre Jimenez. Jimenez hasn't been great lately either, but I'll just go with Jimenez at this point.
All right. And then Josh. What's up, Josh? Welcome. Cody Bellinger, who came back off the IL and instantly hit a home run for Hunter Brown, who's actually I remember Hunter Brown was like that. People were like all into Hunter Brown at the start of the season and then he was horrible, but he's actually been pretty good lately, I think, unless he's been bad again recently. I haven't looked. But anyways, who do you prefer here, Cody Bellinger or Hunter Brown?
Well, this just comes down to what do you need? Now, I would just say in a vacuum, if you ask me straight up, not knowing anything about roster or standings or just who would I prefer, I'd probably go Hunter Brown, actually, because I think having that starter who's been so good, and he's been really good lately, he's finally living up to expectations. I think that's more important, but also it's kind of just not completely trusting Cody Bellinger. So I guess I'll go Hunter Brown.
All right. Go with Hunter Brown. Dexter again. Wilson Contreras or Ryan Jeffers or David Fry?
Definitely Contreras for me here. Jeffers had his moment. He's kind of fallen off. He's okay. He's playable. Fry was a first half wonder. I'm sorry, a 1 month wonder. He had that one good month.
I streamed him for that month, though.
You did. You squeezed whatever you could out of him for that time, and then you're like, okay, it's Contreras.
All right, and then he's got another one, a trade question. Which side wins? Garrett Crochet, Ryan Jeffers, Ryan Mountcastle. I would have really liked it if instead of Garrett Crochet, it was a Ryan, but we'll make do. Or Cal Raleigh, Gavin Stone, and Pete Alonso.
Okay. I would rather have Raleigh than Jeffers, but that's not a big difference. I mean, Mountcastle to Alonso, Stone to Crochet. I mean, this kind of comes down to what do you think of Crochet, right? How much risk are you willing to take on here with him? I'll tell you what, I considered putting him on the buy low. In fact, you saw for a minute I had him. I was thinking this is a good time to buy. Then I don't know. It's the White Sox. You never really know what they're going to do. I mean, I still think he's going to continue to start. He's going to continue to put up 5-6 innings at least. I don't feel like they're all of a sudden a week or two from now going to be like, all right, you're done. I mean, what good is that really going to do? He still wants to pitch, right? If they want any chance of keeping him or extending him or trading him next year, right, they're not going to just shut him down in August. But I would still say, look, if you're in need of pitching or if that's more of a priority for you, go the Crochet side. Obviously, the Alonso side is a little bit safer. So I guess we'll put it that way. I would get the Crochet side if you need to take a chance to pick up some of the slack in your pitching categories. Otherwise, it's the Alonso side.
All right, Anthony's here. What's up, Anthony? Speaking of Garrett Crochet, are you concerned? He got scratched from his last start with general body fatigue. I think at our age, we just call that life. But apparently when you're an athlete in the prime of your career, your body being fatigued is not something you're used to. You're like, whoa, what is this? This is a guy who already missed like a third or more of the season. Are you worried?
Garrett Cole once looked like a nice buy low. I've seen some, analysts that I trust, people who are deep into analytics, say they're concerned. He just doesn't look like the same guy, just in general. And this is probably injury related, but some other things. There were a couple of, I guess, yellow flags maybe toward the end of last season that he wasn't quite his dominant self, even though he was still pitching like his dominant self in terms of outcomes. Yeah, I do have concerns with Cole. So, I think you just have to kind of be patient here and let's see what happens. He's not necessarily headed for a long-term absence. So I'm not going to completely panic yet. I want to see what the deal is, because general fatigue, if that's what it is, then it shouldn't be a big deal, right? He missed a lot of time, right? Maybe he pushed himself too hard coming back. So let's just kind of hold off here and see what happens.
Oh, okay. How do you get general fatigue as a pitcher? You only play once every 5 games. Like, what? Anyways, let's just move on before I get on too much of a rant here. Yeah. Dexter's got another one. Jeff Hoffman or AJ Puck?
I would say Hoffman has been better. If you're strictly looking for just who might get you more saves the rest of the way, it might be Puck, because I feel like Puck and Seawald could be like a 1-2 situation here. And also Seawald has had some injuries as well. So if you're strictly looking for save upside, it's Puck. If you're looking for the guy who's probably better in terms of ratios and everything else and just more trustworthy, it's Hoffman.
All right, there you go. Thank you, Dexter, for all the questions. All right, back-to-back, Nate. Would you drop Gleyber Torres or Maikel Garcia for Jackson Holliday, who in his first game back in the major leagues hit a grand slam today? He didn't do anything else, but he did hit a grand slam. That's a lot. So you dropping these guys to pick up Holliday if he's out there?
Let's do it. Drop Gleyber. No reason to just drop him and don't look back, right? Holliday has to have at least the upside of whatever Torres could do the second half, if not greater. I mean, if he doesn't, if something happens and he hit that grand slam and that's it, then he goes over his next 30 and then he gets sent back down. Oh, well, are you going to cry that you don't have Gleyber Torres to take his place? Probably not. So take the chance with Holliday. Definitely you can drop Gleyber.
All right. And then he also wants to know, with the White Sox not trading Garrett Crochet, do we now see him actually go out there more than 2 to 4 innings?
Yeah, I just mentioned that not too long ago. Yeah, I think he's going to kind of resume pretty much what we had seen before. This whole thing, it got weird for a couple of weeks where he was demanding an extension and, scaring teams away from wanting him. And then he knew he was on the trade block. All of that's gone. It's all over. It's just business as usual now. He's going to go out there. He's going to pitch. I don't see why they would pitch him for 2 to 4 innings. That was to protect him from getting injured before he got traded, and then he didn't get traded. So no, I don't think there's any reason to think he's going to be on restriction now. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if in September they start to cut back a little bit, but for now, I'm not going to assume it's happening.
All right, and then Dexter again now. Okay, so we did Andres Jimenez, Gleyber Torres earlier, but what about if you throw in Bryce Turang or Luis Rengifo? You like those guys over Andres Jimenez?
Yeah, in this case, I'll take either one. I'm going to still go Turang first. Rengifo has been good. He gets you some steals. He can hit for average, but Turang has more steals. His average has dropped, but he's still decent, and he's in a better situation. I'm going to go Turang as my first choice.
All right, and then Tristram, what's up? By the way, it's a redraft league. He's saying AL only, AL redraft league. He's got Jackson Holliday, Jansen, Or he got Holiday and Jansen for Horowitz and Lee in an AL League redraft. How did he do?
I mean, it'll be easier for me to answer that a few weeks from now, but I would say Jackson Holiday, I'm taking the chance. Horowitz is fine. He's been solid, but come on. Are we going to hold on to him or are we going to take a chance on Holiday? Yeah, I'll go with Holiday. I think that's a win.
All right. And then Uwe2K, what's up? Wants to know who's the better ad, Jackson Churio, Xavier Edwards, or Jeff McNeil? And would you drop Bogarts or Kim for any of them?
Wow. Okay. This is a tough one. This is maybe the toughest question so far. So all three of those guys are strong ads. If I had to pick one, I mean, I like Edwards so much because he's finally looking like the type of prospect that we knew could be, right? He's stealing bases, but I don't think I can put him over Churio because, again, team context matters. And Churio is starting to put it together. He's got more power. I think you got to go Churio first. Would I drop Bogarts or Kim? I think I might. I think I might be able to drop Bogarts.
All right.
Yeah.
There we go. Good to see you, Uwe2K. Anthony with another one. Is Lucas Ursig the new Royals closer?
Probably not. I think, Harvey's there. MacArthur's still there. I don't think they got Ursig to be the closer. I mean, he might have been the closer in Oakland by default had he not been traded. But yeah, it feels this Royal situation is starting to feel a little bit like an iffy committee type situation. So he could get you some saves, but I'm not counting on it.
All right, and there we go. It looks like we are all caught up on the questions. Of course, right when I say that, Alberto comes in, traded Mike Trout. The latest on Mike Trout. Are we going to see Mike Trout this year, by the way? I just saw the report that they shut down his rehab.
He got me. This is even the Magic 8 Ball doesn't know. Look, is Mike Trout ever going to come back? And I don't know. This is why I don't draft Mike Trout. I haven't for 5-6 years.
You know what's sad? I'm playing fantasy baseball this year. It's pretty, I got to admit, I kind of enjoy it, but it hasn't turned me back into like a raving baseball fan. I still don't watch baseball. I have not watched a single pitch of baseball this year. I just checked the stats. Obviously, I watch your videos because I see every single one of your videos. But thinking that the Angels had Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani and have nothing to show for it. Like Shohei Ohtani gone for nothing. Could have just traded him at the deadline last year and gotten a king's ransom in return. Could have traded Trout years ago when it was obvious they weren't going to be contenders and got a king's ransom. And now they're just going to be stuck with Mike Trout and his 25 games a year and no Ohtani. Just terrible mismanagement by the Angels. But anyways, how about Alberto's management? Because he traded Mike Trout, Ronel Blanco, and a 6th-round pick in a 5-hitter keeper league for your boy, Julio.
And he clarified here, he's saying that was before the report. So that had no impact. And who knows with Trout. Okay, so you traded those guys to get Julio. Yeah, I think I would do that because let me ask you this, Chris. Being there in Anaheim, near Anaheim, near Angel, basically it's Angel country, sort of, right? Okay, let's just pretend Angels actually have a country. And now knowing what you know about baseball, would you draft Mike Trout next year?
I mean, if he's like a late round pick, sure, I'll gamble on it. Give me, look,
like how late?
What you got? You got what? 29 games of Mike Trout, and he was great in those 29 games. So hey, give me, give me 29 games of late round Mike Trout, and then I drop him. It's fine. But no, now the Angels are stuck with this guy, and they got to pay this guy $1 bazillion forever. And again, they have nothing to show for it because, I mean, they should have like a couple of years ago when he had that 1 year where he actually played like 120 games. They probably should have said like, okay, like let's trade this guy while we can and start over because we're going nowhere fast. But instead they try. And then last year, remember they traded like all their prospects to try to to try to make a run to try to like convince Ohtani, like, look, we can be good. And then they were terrible. And then Ohtani leaves. It's like, who is running this team? Horrible.
Yeah, they're lucky that the White Sox are around so that they can't be officially the worst team in the majors. But look, okay, I would do it because Blanco, you're not gonna keep him. I mean, whatever. I don't think he's gonna carry you the rest of the season. A 6th-round pick. Julio's at the very least going to be a top 5 round pick, regardless of how he finishes this season. He's still got the talent. I think I like that. I think to have Julio as a keeper, I think that's good.
All right. And then Anthony Trout has a sign on his locker saying gone trout fishing. Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
Permanently.
All right. Uwe2K. Again, who's a better starting pitcher ad? Tyler Phillips or River Ryan?
Now, this is interesting because the Phillies did a lot to bolster their bullpen, but not their rotation. So it makes you wonder. I'm not saying Phillips is necessarily, set in that rotation the rest of the season, but based on the way things look, he might be because Suarez should be back at some point pretty soon. Turnbull won't be for sure. Several weeks, I think they said. Taijuan Walker, if he comes back, is he even guaranteed to have a rotation spot? I like Phillips. I mean, obviously the Dodgers added, but they might still need Ryan. But give me Phillips right now.
All right, there you go. And then we got, speaking of fantasy football, the fantasy football dude. What's up? It says great show. Thank you. Okay. Since the Marlins traded away everybody except Jake Berger, they didn't trade away Jake Berger, and now all of a sudden, and now that Jazz is gone, Jake Berger can't stop hitting home runs for some reason. But do you think the Marlins will call up De Los Santos? Is he a good stash? And also, Jordan Westburg, I guess, got injured today.
Yeah, they have to. Okay, they don't have to, but why wouldn't they?
It is the Marlins.
This is the Marlins. Yeah, I know. I mean, honestly, my first reaction to that is, okay, what does this do for his service time? Because that's all they care about, right? Manipulate service time. I don't know the answer to that. But I feel like he's probably either imminent call-up or a September call-up. So, I mean, honestly, look at what the lineup, according to Roster Resource, and basically probably what they have out there. I haven't checked their lineup for today. Okay, Jake Berger, let's say, is the DH. First base now that Josh Bell's on. Jonah Bride. Their third baseman, Emmanuel Rivera. Their second baseman is Vidal Brujan. Davison De Los Santos should be the starting everyday, either first or third baseman at some point for the rest of this decade when he gets the call. So, they will. I just don't know if it's going to be next week or next month. So I would stash him either way, though, because this guy has just been mashing at AAA. And then, yes, Westbrook got injured. Is Mayo coming? Not necessarily, because they did just call up Jackson Holliday. So if Holliday is now just the everyday second baseman, that replaces Westberg, and they really added so many players. I think they almost had a glut of offensive players. So it's possible, but I wouldn't guarantee it. I'll just put it this way. They don't need Mayo right now.
And getting the report that Westberg fractured his right hand, so probably going to be missing significant time there. Luis Correa saying, looks like Olsen is finally heating up. Did I see this right? Like him and somebody else went back to back, and then they did it again later in the same game. Like you don't see that very often.
Yeah, it looks like finally, maybe. I mean, we'll see. I want to see it for more than just a couple days, but yeah. Oh, this is again why it's so hard to drop a player that's that good, because I keep saying, even as bad as Olsen's been most of the season, okay, fine, bench him. Just keep him on your bench. but you don't just drop him unless somebody else pick him up. You know what I mean? You're kicking yourself if you did that with like a Randy Arozarena earlier this year, or of any of these players who just had bad starts to the season. So.
And then I guess a little humble brag from Alberto here saying, who have you guys personally bought on the low this year trade-wise? I got Lindor super early and missed basically the full cold stretch. I definitely got that full cold stretch, but it's okay. He's been better. I guess I bought low on Jazz. Does Jazz count? That's the only trade I made, so.
Well, I guess that's true.
Of course, when I made that trade, I knew he was going to be a Yankee, so, you know.
Right. Back 2 months ago. That really, for you, was more of a sell high on Julio and really sell low, I guess. I don't know.
I don't even know.
Okay, who have I bought low on? I mean, I go through my leagues and figure out my trades and remember who I actually traded for. I just made a trade for Luis Robert Jr. I feel like that was buy low, but we'll see. I can't say that I did buy low because I don't know what he's going to do the rest of the season. But that's somebody I just traded for. I did buy low on Julio, and he's still low. So we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. I have like some dynasty and keeper leagues. You know, it's different, right? It's different when you're looking for next year versus this year. So, let's see if I can remember who else I might have traded for. Actually, I'm looking at my roster now to see. I bought low on Adolis Garcia a few weeks ago, and he's been better. I can't say he's completely back to himself, but he has looked better the last couple of weeks. So Garcia is definitely one that I got.
Yeah, I can't even really. We were talking about this the other night. I haven't really bought low on anybody. I've just picked up everybody's trash. Right? Guys, if people are like, "Oh, I'm done with this bum," I'm like, "Well, he's good. I'll see what happens." Like I haven't been buying low. I've just been like rummaging through everybody's trash that they don't want on the waiver wire. It's worked out pretty well so far, actually.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. Again, if somebody gives up on a player too quick, it doesn't always work out. But depending on the player, sometimes it's worth it, right? People just get impatient. And I just remember, because I look at my roster, I bought Framber Valdez a few weeks ago. I bought low on him. He's been better. So that was another guy.
And then Dexter saying he was about to buy low on Westberg. Don't do that. Don't do that. Unless it's really, really, really low and you can stash him, I guess.
Yeah.
Anthony wants to know, is Chad Green worth a shot for saves?
Definitely. Yeah. Chad Green. In fact, I don't know if it was him. Somebody else earlier asked who's a good instead of like Tanner Scott. Yeah.
That
Chad
was
Green.
Back to Nate.
It was Nate. Okay. Yeah. Great alternative to Scott. He should be the guy in Toronto. He's been great this year. Thought he might get flipped, but he didn't. So I think he's still the guy in Toronto.
All right, there we go. And then Uwe's saying dropped Adolis a while ago and never felt better. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Hey, I'll take your trash.
Yeah. Hey, it always depends. Look, Garcia, let me see, because I feel like he has done better, but let me confirm. Since the All-Star break, okay, he's only hitting 200 with 1 home run. Okay, so it hasn't been great, but I feel like he will be better.
And then this one hurt. This one really hurt because Yelich was my guy. Like he was my stolen base, batting average guy. Because the rest of my team is more like home run, like boom bust home run guys. Is he coming back or is he droppable? I mean, I'm stashing him on the IL. I don't know if you have an IL spot. I'm stashing him. Why not? I mean, but if you don't have IL spots in your leagues, I get it. But what do you think?
I think his season is pretty much over, but I would say this: if you do have a spot that you don't need, it doesn't hurt to stash him. But if you have good, like reasonably good players that you want to hold on to from the IL or even stash instead, yeah, it doesn't look good. Just because he said, "Hey, I don't want surgery right now," that's actually not a good thing, because that just officially would mean his season is over. Rest and rehab usually doesn't magically cure things. So
right, I know that was a big blow. That was definitely a big blow for my team. Because even though he doesn't have the power of some of the guys on my team, it was like, okay, I know I can get maybe like few stolen bases from him a week. He'll hit over 300 probably for the week or pretty close to it. So that was a big blow for sure.
Yeah.
All right, then Anthony's saying in his main league, he's been waiting for Kyle Tucker to get back, but it looks like he won't be back before September. Ouch.
Yeah, that's a weird one because it's not like a ligament. I think if I'm right, it's a shin contusion, which is basically just like a big boo-boo, right? It's like a bruise. It's like, why is this taking 2 months to heal from this bruise? It's a bone bruise. I get it. I'm not an athlete. Like, if I had a shin contusion, I would probably be, crying in pain. But it's just weird that it's taking this long. And the Astros are always really kind of vague when they talk about it. Like, yeah, he's gonna do something related to baseball. It's like, what? Just what? So I don't know. I mean, he's gonna come back this season. It's just weird that it's taking this long. Yeah,
so Anthony's saying it was cracked apparently, so that makes more sense. So, I mean, that's still a better excuse than general body fatigue. Get out of here. Like, how do you actually go up to your team and to your manager and say, hey, I can't go today, guys. My body feels fatigued. Like, what? Your body feels fatigued? Like, what? Like, imagine, like, I can't, like, okay, take the day off, I guess. Your body feels fatigued. Like, what?
Well, sometimes these are like code words for, yeah, he kind of sucked his last start, so we're gonna give him some time to figure it out. Like, it might be, they didn't say it was physical fatigue.
No, they said general body fatigue.
General fatigue.
Is this like who was it earlier in the year? Edwin Diaz when he was struggling. It's like,
oh yeah,
when they were like, oh, we're gonna put him on the IL with whatever it was. It was like some weird thing. It wasn't like, it wasn't like elbow tendonitis or something. It was like some weird, like, put him on the IL like for mental reasons, but we're not going to call it mental reasons. We're calling it something else.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Soreness, general soreness. Like. Yeah. Anyways.
All right. Yeah, they're saying Cole will start Sunday, so we'll see. We'll see if he actually does. We'll see if his body's feeling better then. Yeah, and actually, this is a good point. Maybe Uwe2K might have COVID. Maybe.
True.
It would be very hard to pitch with COVID. That's for sure. I'll cut him some slack if he's got COVID. All right. I think we're there. We're an hour in. We went through all the questions. We went through all the major trades. Hopefully, we helped you guys out. Don't forget, we will be back on Sunday to wrap up the week. Get you ready for the week ahead with 2-start streamers. And also, don't forget, if you haven't tried Underdog yet, there's still time. I think I think there's still some games. Because I think there you go. We got Pittsburgh, Houston still to go. I don't even know if that the Cincinnati Cubs game has started yet because of rain delay. So you got chances there if you want to get some pick'ems in. Last minute pick'ems. Make sure if you are joining Underdog for the first time, you join using promo code ENDGAME because that's going to get you a free pick'em that you can use and up to $250 in bonus cash that you can use right away. And if you like doing fantasy football drafts, they've got fantasy football drafts going full swing right now. Also, we're going to go do a fantasy football draft, a free one, a mock one. So if you want to come get some practice in for your fantasy football drafts, come join us on the other channel. And like I said, we'll be back here Sunday. And of course, Friday, we got waiver wire dropping. Always a big one. So get ready for that. Appreciate you all being here with us and joining us. And we will see you back here on Sunday.